I like the cat lady t-shirt.
Thank you. I got into this mindset of like, I wear a lot of like game and movie t-shirts IRL, and then I was
Mm.
just like, I want my VTuber to do that too. And I don't like it's a weird one because I didn't want to like step on anyone's toes, but I think this one's safe. I have a puppet combo one too because I have the puppet combo t-shirt IRL, but I always worry that like there's gonna be like a copyright problem. One day
Mm.
somebody's gonna be like, get your game off of like that t-shirt. But so far so
Well,
good.
I think you're probably fine if you stick to obscure indie horror.
Yeah, because it's just free real estate, right? It's just
It's free
advertising.
advertising. Because most people won't know what something like the cat lady is. Like I didn't even play the game. I think I know of it because of Ragnarok's video from a while ago. Um,
This is going to be that really awkward moment where I have to admit that I don't watch YouTube videos. Like that's just a thing.
Don't
I'm
worry,
like I'm a
none of us
YouTuber that
watch YouTube
doesn't watch
videos.
YouTube videos.
Uh, no, it's a thing. Like when you make something, you often don't have a lot of the time or energy to like consume that same something
Yeah,
sometimes, or like I don't know. I know a lot of I know game devs who don't play games.
oh
I
yeah, that's a big thing.
Rad as hell.
that's a really big thing. Like there are some game devs you won't catch them dead playing a video game, and
Good
it's
for them.
and
Good for them.
which is interesting because I think people have like I find it's very polarized. You're either like someone who tends to engage a lot in whichever medium you create within, or just don't engage. And there's like not much of that middle ground. Like for myself, which I think is partially just like autistic hyperfixation. I watch a lot of videos.
I think
Um,
hyperfixation's a really good point about it because like if I'm doing something in particular, like I don't know, like if I was making a game or if I was making a video and I was like doing it on a specific thing, I might hyperfixate and be like I'm indulging in like these videos and this content. But on like a general day, it wouldn't be what I would be into. It's like when because I play a lot of Final Fantasy Online. Like recently, I like only just started doing PvP, and so the past like 4 days, nothing but PvP videos and like guides and everything because I like bullying people and it's like a lot of fun in games, obviously. But
in games,
that's
in Minecraft.
just in everything. I just bully everybody. But yeah, like a week ago that would have not been on my radar at all. I don't wouldn't have a single thing about PvP in my like history or anything like that. It's very specifically like hyperfixations.
Damn.
I find
Definitely.
YouTube's quite good at doing that. Just like if something comes in that you're like slightly interested in, it'll just like sort of slide in another 10 videos at you. Like,
It
hey,
pigeonholes you fast. It's very
It
interesting.
happened. It happened to me with chess recently.
Chess.
I got into chess. I got really into chess. That's true. That's a true thing. As a true story. I've been watching a lot of chess videos recently. Um, it's is a bit of an interesting rabbit hole, but yeah, it's a very interesting thing of how you engage with the things you work on. Uh, as like
Darkrai, have you seen the Magnus Carlsen henchman post? It's like a Tumblr
yes,
post.
yes,
So
yes.
good.
That okay. That's
It's my
actually the
favorite
thing.
post.
That's actually the thing. That was sent. That was sent to the in our Discord,
It was probably
and that
me.
was the thing that triggered the. Yes, it was you. You did it. You were the one that did it. I saw that, and that was what triggered my fall into chess
Amazing. I'm
in
so
into
glad it
chess
did.
rabbit hole because that got me looking up Magnus Carlsen videos.
Hmm.
Um,
It's true though. You
But
don't.
why?
It's like you don't notice it that like in all of his videos,
he
he's
has
got
henchmen.
henchmen behind him.
But it's not the
What's up with
same two
that?
people. Like he, why does he have little chess henchmen,
Yeah,
hench chessers?
chess goons.
chess. It's like
You know about this?
he's like the most benevolent Batman.
I have
villain.
no idea, but I'm
Yeah, let's
loving
figure
it.
out.
Like, you know, like when you're just listening to people talk about something that you have no clue about, and it sounds like the most far-fetched thing. There's a little thing in my brain that's like, I'm gonna have to look this up. I need to get into chess.
This isn't far-fetched at all. Magnus Carlsen will play chess on stream, and he will have goons behind him.
Like
two
IRL.
random goons,
Like
yes,
wearing
like
black.
in the meat
Okay.
space. They're just like two little European goons.
It's like, what can they do? They
for
can't offer him
context, he's
advice
like
because
the
he's better than
world.
Moral support.
It's moral
It's just
support.
nice to have someone there for moral
Sometimes you just need the like lads to be there for your stream in the background quietly.
Magnus, that was a brilliant move.
Good job.
I can't imagine like the mood in the room when he's like losing 5 games in a row or something, and he's like, "Yeah, you could do this, Magnus." And he's like,
Also,
"No."
yes, not having gotten into chess a bit, I can confirm the thing that I had this theory about, which is that every chess player has a cool name. Every chess player needs to
Absolutely.
have some sort of cool name, and it's just I don't get it. Why do chess players have such badass names? What's up with that?
Maybe there's like a secret community, right?
Yeah,
and people have really boring names beforehand. Like it'll just be like a dude called like Dave, right? And they're like, okay, look, you're great at chess, but the name's gotta go. We gotta call you something cool.
Apparently, Magnus isn't his real name or something. Apparently, it's Sven or something. I don't know. This may just be an unfounded rumor. But
Chess discourse.
in fact, I'm going
Things
to
heating up in the chess community.
I almost
Google right now Magnus Carlsen his name. Oh yeah, his name is Sven Magnus Carlsen. Okay, I can
I mean,
see
that's
why
still
he
cool.
kept. I can see why he just kept the Magnus. But yes, that's still pretty good.
That's still a good one.
Chess and tennis players, by the way. That's also something tennis players have.
I think the funniest instance of that is Roger Federer, because Roger on its own is the least interesting name of all time.
But Federer is very
Federer
interesting.
makes it, and there's something about the like rhythm of the two names together that lands, and I'm like, what? How does Federer make Roger? Like it's like this transitive property of cool.
There was another tennis player name that I saw. I don't remember the first name, but the surname was Medvedev, and I was like, damn, dude.
You don't mess with Medvedev.
Yeah. Yeah.
God, can you
There's
imagine
a-
if tennis was
Oh,
like
fuck yeah,
was like
court.
wrestling?
In what
That would be
way?
amazing.
Can you imagine? Yeah, can you
like if
imagine
like
tennis?
if it had kayfabe.
Yeah.
That would be really funny. Like I'm just imagining like. And in this corner, the American bat of steel.
the bat of steel. He'll serve you a real whooping.
I just had like this vision of like the ring, but it's like instead of the normal like ropes, it's just tennis nets, and then they have to go under the ring to get tennis rackets, and they're just smacking each other over the head with them.
Yeah.
I'd pay to watch that.
That's
That'd be
great.
great. That sounds
Yeah,
like an
give me-
AEW pay-per-view.
Yeah, give me sports. This is why I don't like sports. It's real boring. Like, give me this. Give me this. You
Give me
need some
carnage.
presentation. So you need some
You know what?
flair in your life.
I think we combine this with the that like boxing chess thing where they play a
yeah.
chess match and then they do after a
like,
certain
play
number
melee.
of moves they do a
Yeah.
round of boxing.
They what?
And
What
Yes,
is
this a real
this?
thing?
Mm.
So they
Why?
yeah. So obviously
That's
their
not
chess
the question.
play,
The question
their
is
chess
why
play
not?
goes down as they get hit in the head. Right? And then they're like scored on like both boxing terms and like how the chess match went. I don't understand the scoring system. I just
I think
heard
this
about
was,
this.
this
So
was
is it like
Luda's-
you
so
could be
absurd.
really good at chess, but if you're like crap at taking a hit, you are just buggered, right? Like you're like checkmate, and you just get knocked out.
I'm loving the idea of someone who just goes into it and is like terrible at chess, like truly the worst chess players you've ever seen, but just
Is really
can
strong.
throw hands that drop of a hat, and like, just knocks out his
Just needs
opponents
to
and
survive the
and then it's
first
like,
few moves.
It's like, yeah, what would be the preferable thing to have? Would you want to be really good at boxing but bad at chess? Bad at boxing but really good at chess? Or a little bit of both?
All of the chess players are going to be so fucking scared because they have to get that checkmate within the first
Yeah.
window. Otherwise,
I
they're
would
fucked.
much rather be good at boxing in that scenario. Like, if you can knock someone out, you've won, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just loving the idea of like specifically that matchup, but is the most extreme terms possible of like the best chess player, worst boxing skill, and the best boxing skill, no chess skill.
Yeah,
And it's like,
exactly.
The real question about this match is, is Roger going to manage to get his opponent out in the first round with a checkmate before he has to take the fists of iron-handed,
This is so fucking funny. Oh my god. This is really good. Oh.
Hell yeah.
You better
Anyway,
put all of this in Dogfight. You better put all
Yeah,
of this in
this is
Dogfight.
all
This
gotta
is
go
amazing.
right.
This
it's
has
all
to-
in. It's all in.
All in.
I couldn't ask for a better podcast if I tried. Anyway, hello, and welcome to Video Gems, the podcast where I'm your host, Darkfry, and and
Yes, we.
That was a good
Where
one,
we-
Dogfight, and then we all started laughing and it ruined it. We should have just carried on as if nothing happened.
And with me, I have my wonderful co-hosts, Harry from Video Games Are Indeed Very Bad, and Aaron Knock, who has made a glorious return after she went on a pilgrimage of devouring people, as all eldritch beings do. And with us today, we have also a very special guest. We have Lee, also known as Wired Usagi, joining us. Lee,
Hello.
please introduce yourself. In your introduction, please include your name, occupation, pronouns, hobbies, and social security number.
Yeah, mother's maiden
We
name.
don't have this. It's
The
fine.
name of my first pet. Which I don't remember. I think it was a fish. Hi, I'm Lee. I'm awful at introductions. I'm like fully like, I'm just staring at myself now, just like, oh god, what is it that I do? Who am I? Do I exist? I've just lost all sense of self in the moment that I've been told to introduce myself. Hi, I do stuff. I work in video games. Sometimes I make videos, which is a very weird thing for me to say because I make videos not very often. I think about making videos more than I actually make them. I stare at things a lot more than actually making them. But yeah, that's stuff I do. I also sometimes write about games. Again, I like to just stare at paper and just be like, yeah, I have an idea, but this isn't coming to me. And I also do accessibility stuff. I like to scream about accessibility in the industry. Literally. I am very aggressive about it in a good way.
That's a
I
good
hope.
thing, though.
Yeah, you have to be. And I'm a disabled gamer myself, but that's not just the reason I do it. It's also just because everybody deserves to fucking play games, and
It's just
also I hope I
correct.
can swear. I hope that's okay because I will do
that's
that
fine,
a lot.
yeah.
Fuck, fuckity, fuck.
Fuck. Okay, good, because I'm like one of those people. I'm like, I do a lot of these sort of, well, no, I haven't done anything like this, but I've done like panels and podcasts and stuff, but they're always like a lot more. Professional's not the word. This is not unprofessional, but you can't swear. They're like go easy on it, and I sit there and I like twitch, and I'm like I really want to fucking just swear. So yeah, thank you. That's
You
me.
can see Lee just like
Vibrating.
vibrating and whistling like a tea kettle.
Honestly, sometimes, right, when I do IRL panels, like, if you stop the camera on me, you'll see me in some sort of, like, vibrating state, and that's me just wanting to scream. But I have to be polite and use proper words like a normal person.
Don't you know you have to be respectable and
No, fuck that.
Oh my god, it's so.
Fuck it. Normal people swear. Normal people scream. I'm not a normal person. But that's not my point. You know what I mean? People just fucking People need to be able to express themselves, and words are just, things that come out. It doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter. None of this matters.
I think about often that study that showed that people who swear more often generally have larger vocabularies. And
It's
more
just we just
complex
choose not
words.
to use them, right? We're like, I could use 30 words to explain this, but fuck does it perfectly fine, so why would I bother?
Yeah, it's like
it's-
you need to get creative with your insults. Like, it's like, why would I call something fucking stupid when I can instead call it gormless? or something.
That's good. I like that. Gormless.
Zero
I-
Gorm.
just
So
no
I worked
gorm.
as a coach. I worked as a coach for a really long time, and the problem is that you obviously can't, go swearing a bunch as a coach. And I have before I was a rower, I didn't swear very much, and then I developed a real sailor's and I'd have to be like, every time I'd be going to coaching, especially with the younger kids, I'd just be sitting there like, don't swear, don't swear, don't swear. Like, I'd just be driving there, and just in my head, I'm like, you're not allowed to swear for the next hour. And I think the funniest instance with something like that was loudly. I didn't intend to. It was middle of a race. We're near the finish line. It's at a regatta, and I just loudly went like, "Fuck!" Like something. I think another shell like bumped into our lane or something. And we get off the water, and my coach Garrett comes down, and Garrett also has a bit of a sailor's. And he's just like,
His name is Garrett,
I
so
know.
of course.
genuinely one of my favorite human beings that's ever existed. Anyway, he's like,
Yeah.
I know I'm not really the person to be telling you not to swear, but you can't do that ever again. And he's trying not to laugh too. Like, he's trying to do the, like, coach, like, you're not supposed to do this thing, but he can't, like, it's funny to... That was an incredible interaction. He's like, keep the swears quiet. Quiet swearing. It carries across the water.
Like, idea's just louder because there's water there. You
Yeah,
actually were heard by everybody in a 5-mile radius.
That's, that was one of my favorite things about Final Fantasy 16 is that, so the characters in Final Fantasy 16, they will say the fuck word. They will say it. And they will say it at, like, very appropriate times. Like, like, it sounds weird hearing it in a Final Fantasy game, but it happens at points where you're like, you know what? I get it. Like, if I saw, it'll be like a giant titan will show up and it will start, like, destroying entire landscapes and killing people and just causing earthquakes that span for miles and just causing mayhem, and the main character will be like, fuck.
Just fuck.
I think my favorite thing to come out of recent Final Fantasy, which I haven't really played any of them, but is just a compilation of, what is it, like Final Fantasy Zero, or what, that recent one that's sort of a remake of the first game, kind of. But the one, the main guy just kept saying
7?
chaos in a really funny
Oh,
way.
Stranger Paradise.
Yeah, Stranger Paradise.
Yeah, Stranger Paradise.
That compilation of him just going, chaos, chaos, chaos. Fuck.
I watched my girlfriend play that game, and like the entire time I was just like, like, I'm trying not to laugh constantly between any interaction between those characters.
So good. It's so good.
Goofy.
There's a point.
It's very good in a goofy sense.
There's a point where where Jack, that's his name, he leaves.
I have to kill
He leaves during a cutscene, and he starts playing like emo rock from his.
Isn't it like Limp Bizkit or something?
He has like an MP3 player, and he starts playing like really hardcore emo rock while he leaves, and then it transitions to them walking to like a completely different location, and the song is still playing, and he turns it off, like diegetically.
It's incredible.
It's incredible. It's just 10
What
out
a
of 10.
choice.
It's amazing.
It's one of those games where it's like, I cannot speak to the quality of the game at all because I haven't played it myself. And like, people have their own opinions on that. But like, as somebody who just sort of watched it, Like I like a lot of like B movies and stuff, and that's what it felt like. It felt like watching a B movie. It felt like these were some Z tier actors they thrust into something, gave them a script that got written one night, and just saw what happened. And I'm not saying it's bad. I just mean it's like entertaining. Like it's really entertaining.
There's a specific type of entertaining that comes from that like B film energy.
Yeah. It's like Deadly Premonition energy.
Yeah, Deadly Premonition. I noticed the use of the music from that on the weird hospital video.
Oh hell yeah! I love Deadly Premonition. Like that. Like unironically, is still one of my favorite games. It's not scary, but it's a horror game. But it's great.
I think Deadly Premonition is the Neil Breen of video games.
Yeah. Do you know, I think, yeah. It's just special in a really weird, like, way. I don't know. It's like, I really like that concept that, you know, Swery and whoever was just like, you know what, I really like Twin Peaks, but I don't want to go through the process of doing this legitimately. So I'm going to make a fan game with an actual studio and just see what happens. And it turned into that. It's outstanding for what it is.
It's such a fascinating work to look at. Like, it's not good in a traditional sense,
bad.
But it's fucking entertaining.
Yeah,
it's so unique.
I think the general idea of something has to be like high quality to be good is like, I don't think that's a good metric for living at all. I think like the concept of did it entertain you or did you have fun is much more like, it makes a lot more sense to me. I would much rather judge things by whether or not I had a good time or not. And like with a game like that, like, yeah, the gameplay is, I don't know, like it's difficult. And I don't mean like as in a difficulty thing. I just mean it can be hard to play because it's janky. Yeah, it's a janky game, but it, you know, you have a good time with it. I think the real measure is like, you know, did I have fun? Did I have a good time? Am I entertained? And then compare that to like, was the gameplay bad enough that I couldn't enjoy it? That's how I judge pretty much anything.
I think when it comes to, because I don't even believe in like good and bad art.
Yeah.
But I think in general, when I think about art and like examining it and things, it's a question of what do you get from it? You know, what is the value you derive from it? And I think that's where things like So Bad It's Good is really trying to encompass, is that people understand. They're like, okay, by the intersubjective frameworks we've built up about like what is technical excellence, let's say, we judge this as bad, but I'm getting something from this work of art that's really valuable to me and it's really enjoyable to me, and I'm trying, and because they're so stuck in their framework of like art has to be good or bad, they can't like, I think that's where So Bad It's Good, and I'm like, maybe it's just a work of art that's enjoyable to you in a specific way.
It's just something that is, it works for you. It's like, I think the problem with
my
the
favorite
way that
term for that is guilty pleasure.
I hate guilty pleasure. I hate it. And I will say the reason I hate guilty pleasure, right, is because I do not feel guilt for anything that I enjoy. There is not a single thing that I go like, oh, guilty pleasure. It's like, I love Shrek. I love the second Shrek film the most. I will never say that's a guilty pleasure. It's just great. I love what is, I guess, generally people will say, oh, this is a bad game, that's a bad game. And I'm like, like you were saying, Aaron, like I got something from it, you know, so it doesn't matter to me if it's good or bad. But like, I think the problem with this is that like people feel shame for enjoying like games, movies, anything, just because they think, oh, other people say, you know, I shouldn't be enjoying it. And it's like, that's an awful way to have to feel when you're just trying to enjoy art, basically.
I think
I kind of get it. Because okay,
kind of feel shame.
No. Look, because see, I happen to like isekais a lot. So I sort of get it. Like,
I think it's a thing of and this is a like very culturally Christian thing that's been imposed on everybody, but I think there's sort of a shame and pleasure
Yeah.
that you're supposed to experience pleasure in a very specific context, a correct way. And when you experience pleasure that's outside of that, there's something that's considered wrong. And I think guilty pleasure comes out of the idea of like look at me, I'm being naughty by enjoying this thing, and it's like and yeah,
Guilty pleasures for the person in your Steam friends who's playing hentai games. Right?
Yeah.
That's guilty pleasure.
I am that motherfucker. Like
You're just like,
I
yes,
don't-
that is me playing the waifu shooter game.
like yeah, bitch. I have Seek Girl in my Steam library. What are you gonna do about it?
Scroll down to the bottom of the store page, close your eyes, click somewhere in the window, and
No,
whatever,
I have
whatever comes up.
I have GIF. So I don't know if I've ever. I don't think I've ever said this before, but I have this
It's not
thing.
public information.
I do.
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, I have this thing that I do where I gift people hentai games.
That's great. That's I want to
And-
incorporate that into my present giving system. I like that.
And I've done it in Secret Santas too. So like like if I'm your Secret Santa, you're getting a little something. But
don't do that for me.
I'm not gonna do that for you. For you, maybe.
I'm Ace. I don't want.
But- I'm Ace
There we
too.
go.
You
No
can
choice
just
but to-
enjoy the art.
Yeah.
Like,
The funny thing is that I too am Ace. But and this is where the wonderful complexity of asexuality is so
It's a very large spectrum. It's very
is
complicated.
so lovely. But yeah, there's a particular favorite of mine, and it's Sex with Stalin.
Oh god, you've talked about this before.
Man, wish I missed that. We're not doing this.
Yeah. There have been many victims of this, and the list grows, constantly grows. No one is safe from me gifting Sex with Stalin to them, and it's a truly wonderful experience.
Do you think the developers are sitting there like looking at the Steam statistics, going like, "This fucker is just buying sex with Stalin
It's
and
like,
gifting it to
this
everybody
person
he
loves
can"?
us.
Yeah, but
You're,
It's
you're
keeping the business
single-handedly
afloat.
keeping them afloat.
Yeah, exactly.
okay, so I will say
50%
that
of sales are just dark.
I will say that one person who I gifted Sex with Stalin to has played it, and I will not say who it is, and they told me that they loved it.
They love
There we go,
sex with
guilty
Stalin.
pleasure.
So yeah, I will not say I'm not naming names, but but so far Sex with Stalin has exclusively rave reviews from the people I have gifted it to. So yeah, even that should not be called a guilty pleasure, IMO. Just own it.
We've done it.
Own it, because I forced you to own it. It's now in your Steam library. Deal with it. So, Lee,
Hello.
you sort of breezed through something in your introduction earlier.
It's just my MO. Just breeze through.
You just said it.
I'm like, don't talk to me about it.
Yeah. You just said it very casually.
Hoping
Just
we
sort of
wouldn't
like
bring it up.
just sort of shot it out there that you were on panels
Yes.
and
Yes.
did like many events and stuff like that. Like how
Stuff
cool is
in
that?
the flesh.
Like how cool is that, huh? How fucking like you just fucking
It
breezed
is
through
cool.
that. You
It is cool.
just threw it out there like it was nothing.
Well, it's one of those things, right? Like I am still what I would consider a bit of a baby in the gaming industry. I've been doing it for exactly 1 year and 8 months, I think, roughly. And I love it. It's great. It's fantastic.
Yes.
And I did very much throw myself into the deep end because when I was like a few months in and people were like asking about, I can't remember the first thing I did, if I'm being honest. I think it was a panel on chronic illness, and it came up in a discussion and they were just like, hey, do you know anyone? And I'm just like staring, you know, like you like The Office stare at the camera, and just like, I'm like, I'm chronically unwell, like maybe I could do it. And it kind of like snowballed from there. It was really fun, like, and it was really, I guess it was just like really nice to sort of talk to other people, because it was specifically about chronic illness in gaming, and like sort of, you know, what that looks like for people, how the industry sort of, you know, how it doesn't really have much to do with like chronic illness when it comes to accessibility and stuff, but there's actually a lot of chronically like ill gamers. And it was just really interesting because I think, you know, just like, yes, but one of us. I think like up until that point, I had been quite lonely. I worked in a completely different industry before. I hadn't met anybody who had chronic illness. And then to be like, oh my God, not only are these people sort of like, you know, on the same page, but they do video game stuff, which was really, you know, it was really fucking cool to me. I was just like, whoa, this is awesome. And then from that point, it was just a lot of like, oh, here's this panel about disability, here's this panel about accessibility. And as I started doing like my accessibility specialism, that kind of snowballed into a whole other thing where I started meeting people who were like, oh my God, you have so much to say about this. And I'm just like, yeah, well, being somebody who's been like a disabled gamer for, you know, a very, very long time, I'm not going to give dates because that will age me and I'll feel really old. But I'm just an ancient, you know, eldritch being at this point. But like,
join the club.
Be like, right? Like, I'm with my people. I love it. But yeah, just to sort of
and Harry
Harry's like
one mortal around.
Yeah, Harry's the mortal who like read from the book that's just summoned everyone and is now like, I don't know what to do, but I've got like
exactly.
5 minutes before I lose my mind. Like, does anybody want like Taco Bell or something, like, before the world ends? You just go out and get stuff for people. But yeah, you know, like I'm rambling a bit, but it was just nice to sort of get involved in these communities. And I think you know, doing panels, I did a couple of podcasts, and then I did yeah, now I'm on this. I did like a panel talk at Sumo Developer Conference. So that's like an in-house conference that Sumo Digital hold for like its employees. And that was probably one of my favorite ones to do, because I got to talk quite candidly about the industry. And it's a shame because I don't think it's a publicly available talk. But it's something that I hope I can do another panel on, like, publicly to talk about, because, you know, I like to sort of point out that there are a lot of problems in the industry and there's a lot of ways we can sort of work to fix them. And I think that's the big thing that is always quite important to me, is talking about that. Is like, it's not easy to, you know, that you can't snap your fingers and suddenly be like, hey, you know, every person with a need can now play games and can now be involved. But the sort of concept is easy. Getting the discussion is easy. Starting games with accessibility in mind is easy. It's just sort of retroactively doing it that's quite hard, and kind of basically where everything ends up is everybody sort of going like halfway through a project and then going, oh, whoops, what about the people who need like screen reader, you know, capabilities? And even like sometimes there'll be games where it's like, my God, this game doesn't even have subtitles, and you're just like, then you wait for a patch and it's like, oh, you know, now you think about accessibility. So yeah, I like to talk about it a lot. I like to shout about that a lot, and I also like to just talk about pretty much anything. I like to talk about horror stuff too, though. Like, I haven't done a panel yet on horror, but I am I'm in the Horror Game Awards jury this year, so that's like
exciting.
Yeah,
nice.
That's the closest thing I've done to like horror and gaming, which is really cool, because the only other thing I do is like my writing and my videos. And although I love the accessibility stuff and I will keep doing that and keep pushing it, there is also a big part of me that's like, please, I want to talk about horror like all the time. I love it. It's so good. And they kind of go together anyway, because horror games are unfortunately like commonly inaccessible. It's like a general problem that horror games have, because they're very reliant on certain atmospheric elements, things like audio, visuals and stuff, but if they focus too much on one thing, certain players can miss out on another thing. So it's like games that focus on like audio cues for atmosphere and stuff. Deaf players are not going to get that experience because a lot of these games don't give you like an alternative visual prompt. There are games that do it. Like there are games that have good accessibility, but I think, I mean, I might be misspeaking here, but I think because a very large portion of horror games is like indie games, it's like you can kind of measure it by the fact that they probably don't have the resources or the funds to, you know, implement these sort of features. But then it's another discussion there where it's like, we need to change the industry so everybody can, you know, have access to the tools they need to make games for everyone. It's just like a big all-round problem.
There's layers to it. I think
there's a lot of layers.
I think there's like two things I wanted to add, which is there's a concept in computer science in general, but it you know, it really applies to any project related to code and things, which is that the earlier you implement something, the less time it costs by an exponential factor. And so often what a lot of studios do is they treat accessibility as this last step. But if you do it early, the cost is a couple of hours versus potentially 100 hours or more of trying to implement this thing because you didn't design the systems from the beginning to accommodate needing that later on. And what's interesting is there is a number of AAA studios that are doing better. Emphasis on better, not doesn't mean it's perfect, but better. And part of that is that a lot of them have started implementing accessibility things early in their process. And then they're going, oh, wow, it's actually way easier than we thought it was. And it's like, yeah, because before you were trying to stick it onto the side of the thing after
you had like
it's
a
done.
full box and you're trying to shove stuff into the box and it's bursting and it's like, it doesn't work that way.
And a good example of how, like, demonstrating how that works is that, like, part of why they had to so heavily recode all of The Last of Us 1 was because they, to implement some of the accessibility features which they were known for having in The Last of Us 2, when they did The Last of Us 1 remake, they literally had to start from scratch on some things. And it just demonstrates how much that approach difference will affect the cost of implementing accessibility and why the mentality shift needs to occur early.
Yeah. What also, just to quickly add on, because this is always like a super important thing that like not enough people understand. Like I'm sure you all understand, but I just mean to like people watching, you'll make more money. Like hands down,
Yes.
you're just going to make more money. So it'll be cheaper the earlier that you implement it, and you're going to make more money because more people can play your game. It's as simple as that. And people will rave about your game if it's got good accessibility. It will become huge in the community. And then, you know, I know that games aren't made primarily with finance in mind. Well, you know, the majority, the passion projects and everything. But if money is a factor, if sales is a factor, you will make more money if your game's accessible. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and if you implement accessibility early and treat it as a very high priority, then you will be able to like actually invest the time and effort it requires, even if you are an indie team, and you can still reap the benefits from it, both for your game and for your player base. So I think there is this sort of shift happening where both AAA studios and indie games are starting to like realize the value of not just like implementing accessibility, but making it a high priority to have it at the beginning of your project.
Are there any sort of areas in accessibility in video games that you think are sort of lacking at the moment? Because I think it's quite easy to say, oh yeah, we've got subtitles now, we've got colorblind mode, but you know, is there anything else? You know, is there more beyond that you think the games industry is kind of lacking on?
I think like it's one of those things, right, where I have a lot of knowledge, you know, but there's also going to be a lot of people who have their own specific needs, so I can't speak for everybody in that respect.
That makes sense.
But like screen reader accessibility is something that I think helps an awful lot of people and does not get put in nearly enough games. I think it also depends on the kind of game, and quite like something I am seeing a bit more of is that like, and I love this, is that there are games where they're being designed around accessibility. So the actual style of game will be affected by, you know, the kind of people who play it, and they want everyone to be able to play it. So they'll not necessarily simplify things, but they'll make things a certain way. But I mean, yeah, for the most part, we have things like subtitles, and I think, you know, color blindness modes are coming more and more often, which is really good to see. It's really good to see them in a lot of games that are multiplayer as well, I think, because I find games that are multiplayer like absolutely impossible to keep up with if I can't see things like specifically. But again, I think it's just like there's so many needs that people have, and obviously I understand you're never going to be able to. Well, I say never. You know, you never know. There might be an amazing game one day that does like do everything for everyone, but you're never going to be able to really do every accessibility need for every person. I think there's always going to be somebody who will struggle to play a game.
There's an important concept in disability activism, which is conflicting access needs, which is that to make something accessible for one group, it may actually make it inaccessible to another.
Yeah.
And well, I think games have more options than almost any other field in being able to implement separate things. The reality is, for some things, especially for small teams, for indie devs, they're probably going to end up having to prioritize a certain set of the largest group of disabled people that they can make it accessible for. And that isn't an excuse to not try, but it's just an unfortunate reality
of things.
Yeah, development is expensive and time is difficult for devs.
Also, there's this, especially for competitive games. Like I've heard a lot that like for competitive games is especially hard because, like you need like, how are you gonna introduce accessibility options to a competitive game? Blah blah blah. But recently there's been a lot of progress. And I find this very impressive and very important. There's been a lot of accessibility progress in fighting games. And that's huge in my opinion. Like
that is really cool.
Like with simplified inputs, with like visual cues, audio cues, different visual styles that like make it clear what's happening on screen. Like for me, making fighting games accessible, like that was the one like genre that people were saying like it's impossible.
Yeah.
Because of all of its conventions and traditions and whatnot. But no, like that truly shows to me that basically any game with the correct direction, the correct consideration and design put into it can become accessible in some way. Like recently there was, like in Street Fighter 6, there was a blind player that performed really well at EVO. And that was just really cool to see, like using the game's accessibility options.
It is really cool. I have a bit of a I was just gonna say I have a bit of an unfortunate reality now with fighting games. Like it's one of those things where like I'm really glad to hear it, but there is a tiny bit in my mind that's like I wish it happened sooner because
absolutely
I have developed I don't know if it's like full on carpal tunnel or something, but like I can't play fighting games for longer than like 10 minutes but my hand seize up like completely. I have to wear compression gloves, and it's so unfortunate because me and my partner used to play fighting games together all the time. Like she's super good at them and I'm crap, but I love playing them with her. But now, like, you know, like we'll look at each other when we're trying to find a game to play. We'll look at like Tekken Tag 2 or something. And I so want to play, but there's a bit of me that's like, I'm like 3 matches and then I can't play it. Like my hands are just killing. And it's so unfortunate. And it is just because, you know, fighting games are of a very specific type of game where you're pressing a lot of buttons. You're having to do all these like combos and stuff. And it's, I guess like it's more intense on the hands than a lot of other games, because, you know, even stuff like shooting games, you tend to be able to like hold down a button rather than having to press it each time. Whereas like
Yeah.
I would love simple combos and everything so that I don't have to, you know, break my hand just to do like a roll off. I also have I have, I'm not gonna say like abnormally shaped hands, but I have larger hands than usual. So I find it hard to hold a controller at the best of times. So I've tried like the fight sticks and stuff, and they are actually a lot better for like actual hand cramps. But then you have to deal with like having the box on your lap and then having like the weight of that. So it's like there's no happy medium there.
Yeah. I had a point, but I think I kind of lost
Whoa.
it. But I'm going to go back to an earlier point that I had, which was
Whoa, I literally just like I scratched my eye and my model just decided to do do the limbo. Like I hope everyone enjoyed that.
I did.
I was going to say with when people say like, oh, it's impossible to make something accessible, that shows a fundamental lack of both imagination, ingenuity, and just
that was
hopelessness
the whole,
to it.
That was the whole
It's
thing
so
behind my Dark
obnoxious.
Souls video.
Mm-hmm.
That was the whole thing behind my Dark Souls video. Like the whole, it's impossible to give accessibility options to Dark Souls. It's impossible to have an easy mode on Dark Souls. Like, motherfucker, fucking think about it a little. Fucking
Not
like,
with that attitude.
Well,
yeah,
what
not
annoys
with
me-
that attitude, exactly. Like,
and obviously like I made a big video about why difficulty settings are inherently accessibility settings to some degree around the same time, and you and I were having a lot of conversations about that, Dark Fry. But what annoys me with Dark Souls in particular, when people say that, is like Dark Souls actually has more diegetic difficulty settings than any other game in existence by like leaps and bounds, because yes, there's no sliders, but and it could be a lot better implemented in certain ways, and I think later games in the series did. But how you use builds, whether you level up things, you can grind. Like, there's a lot of ways
Yeah.
to make fights easier in that game, using the correct damage type and things. And later games, which are like particularly the Elden Ring, which lets you farm for certain resources so you can craft as many weapons as you want. It's not as restricted about what you can play with. To
I
argue
still don't
that
think
Dark
that's
Souls
a
has
complete.
no-
I still don't think that's like a complete substitute for.
I'm not saying it's a complete substitute. What I'm saying is to argue that Dark Souls can't have difficulty settings is absurd, considering
Yeah,
it already
yeah.
has them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Summons are a difficulty adjustment.
Summons
Oh, yeah, yeah.
summons break the game like a twig. It's just it's hilarious to me that in the game that has a mode that's literally giving your controller to your big brother to play the game for you.
But
Are so
It's-
protective
like
over the difficulty.
and I think Dark Souls should have more direct difficulty settings in certain ways. I don't even love the term difficulty settings. I prefer to call them assist settings and things like how Celeste implements them. I think that would be good for the game, and it doesn't affect anybody. I think you could. The way to implement it is you would have to disable certain online features or make it so you only match with other players that have the same settings activated, perhaps. There's a lot of different ways you could implement it. But just so that, like, yeah, if people want to have that super difficult experience PvPing with each other, then they can have it. But like for me, I've played through Dark Souls with like the first time I beat the game was a no armor run with like dexterity and I barely ever used shields, and like I played the game at a higher difficulty if that exists than a lot of the people that complain about you can't have a difficulty setting in this game, and I'm like, no, you should have that setting. The setting should be available to people.
It would be
need it.
it would be cool if there were like difficulty accessibility settings, because it's like things like summons, like I get it, but at the same time they're not entirely accessible, because I think you know, it depends on the game, but it's like depending on how many summons you have, your boss is going to be more difficult. So arguably, if you summon people who are shit at the game and they go in and they die, you've got like a 3 times boss by yourself, and and this has happened so many times. Like, you know, I've played a lot of Dark Souls, and I will just sit there and I'll just be staring at the screen. I'm like, well, they're all fucking dead and they were supposed to help me, and now I have to deal with this problem by myself. You know, and then you start thinking it's better if I just went by myself. It would have been easier. So like having an option that's like summons don't affect, you know, I guess like boss health, boss difficulty.
Yeah.
That would be accessible, you know, in itself and change the game. And
There's so many imaginative ways you can do accessibility.
So
if you
many.
think about it.
You can make everything. Like I think every single game in the world ever made, you can always make it more accessible. It could be the smallest little detail that you could change, but you can make it better for somebody. It's as simple as that.
And that's why you need loud, talented people to advocate for accessibility and everything.
And that's why I shout.
Yeah, and that's why you need to be loud. You need to be aggressive. You need to be annoying about it.
You're gonna like the Nimona video because it's very much about that to an extent. But just to finish the thought, which no, I lost it. Sorry. You
should be able to pause an Elden Ring. That's it.
I have a perfect example of a really small accessibility thing that people don't really think about, but it's tiny. In games where you have semi-auto weapons, and Destiny 2 recently implemented this, is why I think about it, probably about a year ago, which is that when you hold down fire, the semi-auto weapon fires at the speed, like the fast rate, and that way you're not having to slam a button repeatedly. And for myself, like that makes playing the game much more enjoyable and less painful on my hand. And like that's such a tiny thing. That's a tiny little detail, but it's really easy to implement, especially if you already have automatic weapons in your game. And it just makes the game more accessible for a lot of people. Like, and part of what like motivated a bunch to do that was just talking to disabled players and going, oh yeah, wow, some players like literally won't use certain weapons because they have to do this repeatedly, and it's like it's hard on their hand. And
it's exactly that. It's that like mentality of like, look, people are literally not playing your game. Like they might be playing it, but they're not playing everything that you made. People are not experiencing everything that you did just because, you know, you need to just make it a little bit more accessible.
And then I wanted to come back around to something that I wanted to talk about much earlier, which is just chronic illness and the games industry and tech industries at large. As a chronically ill person, like, and my chronic illness has gotten a lot worse across my, like, since about age 20 until now. Like, I used to be like a high level competitive athlete. I can't even work out safely now without getting very sick. You know, and I can't hold a consistent job where I work within certain hours and things.
Yeah.
And that's just like not, this industry is so built around you go into the office and you're there at these times and that sort of thing in a lot of ways, in a lot of spaces. Not all companies are like that, but it's like you lose out on people that can do good work. I can't work at a consistent schedule because sometimes my body is done for the day, and sometimes my sleep is way off, so I'm awake for between these hours. And I think, and anyone can look at the art that I make and can tell that I can do good work, and like within the field of computer science and stuff, like I've done high level research, I've done really quality work in industry, and I just can't work most of those jobs. And it's literally just because they expect you to work within a specific like structure,
like time frame structure. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It is something that I am incredibly like passionate about, is like work from home, but not just work from home, but like the ability to be flexible with it. Because like where I work, we have like core hours, so they're the hours of the day they sort of like say you need to be in. And then they have flexible hours, which are basically like we have like I guess like a weekly amount of hours we're supposed to hit. And as long as we hit those hours, we can work within those flexible times as much as we want. And it's really useful, especially for the people who work from home, because it's like, as well as being chronically unwell, I'm neurodiverse. I'm super autistic.
Same.
Right? Like, it's obvious. If people can't tell that by now, then like they just don't have the TISM radar, because like I just have it in bucketfuls. But because of this, it's like my brain tends to sort of kick in late at night. Like it could be like maybe like
Yes.
probably it starts around about like 8 or 9, but then like I'll stay up, and especially if I get into something like lately I've been doing some mods for some games and some sort, you know, like they're mostly cosmetic, but I'm such a perfectionist and I will end up hyper focusing and being like, oh my god, this line isn't right, or this little bit of glitter's out of place, and it'll be 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm like, oh god, this is when I'm productive. And like in the industry, a lot of people are
last night.
right. It's a canon event, okay? It is. But like the thing about the gaming industry is that there are a lot of big studios, and I guess some small ones, that have this like rigid structure. There are places that'll be like, you have to be in the studio, you have to be in our office, and it's stupid, and I won't stand for it, and it's bullshit, right? Every tech job in the gaming industry can be done work from home,
especially when you realize that literally the only reason they're so gung-ho about returning to the office and having you be at the office is because of rental values of the office buildings.
Yeah, it's like we want to keep our nice shiny building, and it's like, that's not my problem.
Like,
okay?
that's literally
I'm just here to do my job.
Literally the only reason.
Right, but like, I think it's interesting because you'll see studios that are like completely remote or like majorly remote, and they will be incredibly successful. I mean, my studio, we have people who work around the world as well, so not everybody is even on the same time zone. And for the most part, we just try and make sure that we catch each other for a couple of hours a day, that we're all there, which is what the core hours are for, because it will just be like, I don't know, like if I need to talk to a level designer about something, I can ensure that they're going to be around at this specific time, and I can be like, hey dude, like what the fuck am I meant to be doing here? And then they'll be like, oh, it's this, and I'll be like, all right, great, cool, have a nice day. And you might not hear from them for ages because they're on the other side of the world, and they're like, their times will be completely different, and they'll actually be logging on other times, and it works fine. You know, as far as I can tell, it works fine. And every job, especially QA, I'm gonna push this because this is the big one. QA can be done work from home. Don't fucking tell me you can't. Because a lot of people like to be like, well, not people, a lot of like
ghouls.
Yeah, it's one of those things, right? I say people, I don't mean people. It's kind of like when you sort of like personify like a studio or like a conglomerate or something. It's kind of like the big,
that's why I said ghouls.
Part at the top.
those with
yeah,
power
ghouls.
within a hierarchy.
Like, yeah, it's like a general consensus is like, you can't do QA from home. You have to be in the office. So many QA jobs are like, you have to stay in the studio. And it's like, if you aren't able to do QA from home, that's because the infrastructure that they've set up is incorrect. Like, that's their job, is to make it so you can do your job regardless of like the fact that you might have to stay at home.
Also, if I can add something,
inaccessible.
Yeah.
So this is a conversation we had recently, Lee. But I wanna add it here because so I've been on the job hunt recently, right?
Yeah.
I did find a job, and I had my first day literally yesterday. And I'm very happy with it so far. I know it was first day, but whatever. Anyway, so I've been looking a lot into remote game dev jobs. And for a junior position, you just will not find any remote positions. Yeah. You just will not find any remote positions for work from home and game dev studios. You just won't. And like game studios have a general problem of not hiring juniors a whole lot, but especially so in work from home. And from what I've seen, it's because I've seen a lot when I was like searching and researching this is, it's difficult to train juniors when it's remote. It's difficult. You need to like trust someone that they're able to work and be productive at home, and
you'll be the one teaching them, Darkrai.
And it's difficult for that. And it's difficult to do that with work from home, and it's like, you motherfuckers. come the fuck on.
The thing that I don't get right.
It's not.
The thing that I
it's
don't
not
get is that you've got
difficult.
like the ghouls, let's say, and then you've got the cool people, and surely the talent pool is only going to want to work for these like sort of cool people who are flexible and you know allow this kind of structure, and then the
Yeah, they're gonna
ghouls
find that out the hard way.
Well,
they are going to
and
find that out the hard way.
the thing is, you can't hide not having done your work in tech.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, good luck hiding bad
Good
work in a PR when they do your pull requests. You know, like, and as someone who's done a lot of you know, code checking on pull requests and things for stuff, like you can't hide mistakes. You can't hide that you didn't do the work. It's all there in the code. It's
not there,
visually
as the
there.
case
You
may
can
be.
tell if it's there or done. And so this idea that like, oh, but we can't trust. It's like, then why the hell would you hire that person in the first place? If you can't trust that they're going to do their job, then why did you hire them to do the job? Right?
The thing is,
like, I've
Anna,
heard
is that
the
when
term
you
that juniors are risky, and I don't agree with that at all. I think it's an awful sort of mindset to have.
Yeah,
it's kind of rude and insulting
Mhm.
too.
When
yeah.
you enter the office, right, it's like a magical barrier, and all of a sudden, everybody in the office just feels compelled to do all of the work, whereas if they're at home,
No,
they
I've
don't
They
spent
do
will
that.
do any
literally-
work at home, of
I've
course.
spent literally one day in the office of my new workplace. Literally one day I went there, and people were just doing whatever. And it's like, and it's not like, and it's not that it's like a problem. It's not that like you expect them to be like productive all the time while they're there. Like people will like you know, do whatever they're doing. They're doing their job. It's like whatever. But
I find offices distracting. I get
Yeah.
less work done.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
can
Lots
be.
of noise, bright lights. There's just so much
People-
going on.
yeah, people around you. Like I was wearing headphones and like watching a bunch of animated training videos. Which, by the way, I have to they had me watch like a bunch of like animated tutorial videos on cybersecurity. And whenever that
So
those
you wouldn't
videos,
steal a car. And that's just
yeah,
your,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
your
So
job.
those sort of things, like cybersecurity PSAs, basically. And whenever those videos talked about hackers, they would show a room that had 3 women wearing hoods typing like mischievously on a computer. And I just want to give a shout out to those nefarious hacker women.
Listen, statistically speaking, some of the most, you know, skilled hackers on the planet are trans women. So
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
all the power to us, I guess.
Like literally, that's what I thought. I was like, these are trans women. These are nefarious hacker dolls.
I mean, like, straight up.
Like,
I don't know if
straight
this is
up,
statistically correct,
Like
but
this
they
was,
hold up
they were
the tech
one
industry.
step. They were one step away from showing the programmer socks.
One step away from stealing the no-fly list.
Yeah, and I was like, God damn, like, shout outs to the animators, I guess, because that was definitely like accurate.
just in this household, we love nefarious hacker trans women.
Shout out to any nefarious trans hacker woman who are listening to this podcast. We support you.
I'm almost certain that, like, every trans person I've ever met is secretly a hacker, and I salute
No,
you.
yeah, not like so.
the
So if
fine-
you're a
I'm
trans,
like, I'm trans and I'm not a hacker. Cough, cough.
The thing is, I am a very skilled computer scientist. I'm not a hacker. I'm not good at security stuff. This is really funny. I feel like I'm almost the stereotype, but just barely.
Just not there.
you know,
I
the
recently. Oh no, sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah.
So-
the funniest thing I know about the Wachowskis' work is from someone that like knew them, like was in the BDSM scene with them in the '90s, in Chicago and stuff. Which is just that one of the members, I'm not gonna say who because I don't want to like, because like the name is like the same as the hacker name of the real trans guy, but like one of the members of the crew of the Nebuchadnezzar is based off of a real trans hacker, and so is Nomi from Sense8.
Amazing.
And just knowing that those characters are just
Wait, as in
really
they're based on the
real
same.
trans people that are
Wait,
hackers. No,
Are they
no,
based
two
on the
different
same
people, two different
person?
people.
Okay,
Two
okay.
different trans hackers from Chicago.
Just like on the hacking thing, I recently said to some colleagues, I was like, what is QA if not the ethical hacking of video games? Because it's technically my job to just go into a
Yes.
game and break it.
Yes.
You know, and then to show you the problem so you can fix it. Like that's literally what I do.
That's what white hat security hacking is.
Right?
That's literally what it is you break systems on purpose, and then that way you can figure out how to make it so you can't break the system.
Yeah, make it better. And it's like, I always think it's funny when, you know, like there are people out there, there are ghouls out there who consider QA like, you know, not as important or not, you know, a proper video game job, which is bullshit.
Which is another huge problem in the game.
Oh my god,
in
yeah,
the
it's
game
awful.
in the game industry. Meanwhile, actual game devs will treat QA people with like reverence.
Yeah.
QA is one of the most important
Yeah.
things. It's so important. Like,
Yeah.
It's like
good QA
everybody
testing.
I meet in the industry who are like actual game devs, they're like, QA are the backbone. And then every QA I meet is like, we are so undervalued, we are the backbone. And it's just ghouls who just get this idea in their head who's like, you're we don't
exactly.
need you.
The people with the
fans,
money don't
too.
know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah, either
Yeah.
ghouls and gamers.
Ghouls and gamers, yeah, that's
Ghouls
the
and
right term. Because,
gamers.
like, don't get me wrong, I love
Ghouls
gamers.
and that guys.
Yeah, I love gamers as a whole. I'm a gamer. I can be that guy well, not that guy, but I could be a guy sometimes. But like, yeah, because I that's the thing I realized. Like, I've never been the kind of person to really judge game devs or anything, which I'm really thankful for. But when I entered the industry, it was a real peek behind the curtain. And, you know, I'll say the same thing that everybody who gets into game dev says, which is like, I have no fucking clue how games actually get made. Like,
Oh yeah.
everybody's
Oh,
just
yeah.
running around trying their goddamn best. And
Oh, yeah.
it's amazing that it does, like, that the stuff does get made. People work so hard. But, like, yeah, the people who are just like, oh, yeah, you don't need QA. And I'm just like, do you not want video games anymore?
Have you heard people say that?
There are people who just straight up are just like, you don't need QA. And it's reflected in, you know, stuff like pay. Like, QA are the lowest paid in the industry by a lot. Like, I mean, it varies from studio to studio, but I think if you look at the averages of salaries, like obviously for me it'd be for the UK, but I'm pretty sure it would be the same in other countries, that it's like you're looking at like maybe a 10,000 like difference between like a junior QA and say something like, I don't know, like a junior concept artist or something. Like, it's a massive difference. And it's just, yeah, it's a reflection of how ghouls, and I guess to an extent gamers, just sort of think QA are just disposable. And it's also told by the fact that QA are generally contract a lot of the time. Like, I'm really lucky because I'm a permanent QA, and I didn't realize when I got the position, I was told this is just basically like a unicorn job. Like, you don't get permanent QA roles in the industry. And everybody I've met in QA since is like, oh yeah, we do like 6, 9, 12-month stints and that's it. Then we have to move to another part of the country and get a job elsewhere. And it's like, it's absolutely insane to me. Whereas like, I'm very blessed, very lucky that I just get to stay in the same place and break stuff constantly.
It's become an increasing problem with all roles.
Yeah.
In especially in AAA studios and things. There's a recent video from Polygon that was good where they were talking about this, about how the industry is quickly careening towards a crash point because they aren't developing senior developers at all, because they hire people for 6 months and get rid of them. They hire them for 12 months, they get rid of them. In any position, whether it's designers, coding, or QA, and I just think about like how nasty the union busting tactics have been, in particularly in the US against QA teams. I know that happened to all the QA people at Raven, right? When they unionized, there was just like a whole series of things that I think it was Blizzard Activision did that were just horrible.
It is
Um,
really unfortunate. Although, for what it's worth, because this is something I don't talk about because I
mm,
guess it's quite like personal to me, but I'm actually quite a very rebellious person. I'm quite fierce. I'm very pro union. I'm very pro like setting things on fire. That's great. Um, but like in a very genuine sense, like
We do a
as much.
revolution or two around here. It's
Yeah,
fine.
I'm a little bit of an anarchist, you know, but
like
for
the Willem Dafoe. I'm a bit of an anarchist myself.
I'm somewhat of an anarchist myself,
Yeah.
but like there is also something to be said about like having the coverage, having stuff get exposed to actually, you know, push people to realize there's a problem and to also push people to sort of become a part of the solution. It's like
absolutely.
my big thing when I joined the industry was basically talking to the rest of my QA team and being like, all right, so we're all going to join a union, right? And as far as I know, we're all in the union now. So it's like, you know, well, you want to be safe and you want to be secure, but it's also about like, I guess like it's type of allyship in itself. You know, it's like maybe the
Yeah.
stuff in the US doesn't directly affect me now, but it will because you know these things will just because it's that mentality for anything, right? It's like I hate it when people are like, "Oh no, that's happening over there. That doesn't affect me," and it's like, no, that's it. If you wait, it'll get to
It
you eventually.
reverberates.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
like
why wait? Stand up for that. And you know, it's you shouldn't just stand up for stuff because it will help yourself, obviously. But you know what I mean. The mentality of like
mm,
that fight is my fight. So
Yeah.
you know, stuff
Like
happening in the US, that it affects me too.
I think literally today, the SAG-AFTRA people like authorized
SAG-AFTRA
the
Oh
strike,
yeah, yeah.
strike against
authorized
video
the
games.
strike for also video games. And you know, this is a thing that's gonna happen more and more of. Video game companies will face Judgment Day is coming. They will
My
they will face their comeuppance, so to speak, because you know, like the game industry is pretty unique in just how like I don't think they're
I
like
think
it may
there's
be
one
because
comparable group, which
yeah
is VFX artists in Hollywood are
yeah
treated
Yeah.
very similar
Yeah.
to dev teams and to QA and every. My hope is that SAG-AFTRA striking major game corporations, and they are specifically striking against major game corporations, so not indie devs and things. There's a specific list, sort of like
yes
how they're striking against the AMPTP when it comes to film, but a lot of indie or smaller budget productions, such as pretty much everything that A24 is doing, and hopefully soon, Jesse and my film, for example, are still going ahead. We're just waiting on permit things. There's a whole someone didn't do their job on purpose. It was a whole thing. But you can there's a video on Jesse Gender's channel about the whole series of events. But the point is that like they're very specifically striking these major corporations, these big production houses, these large game companies. And my hope is that by having SAG striking in the same way that in the film industry it's caused VFX artists to feel that they have the space now to go in all in on forming unions and striking, which is what's happening with Marvel's VFX departments, and now Disney's VFX artists have joined the Marvel group in forming a union. I think it's under acronym skipping my mind, but my hope is that SAG-AFTRA striking major game companies will give developers this chance finally to push for unionization, for developers, for QA, for everybody that works in the game industry. Because if you look at the amount of profit that is generated by the games industry relative to the amount that actually makes it to any of the workers that make
yeah
these games
it's
happen,
literally the most profitable industry
Yeah,
in
it
the
makes
world
so much money.
and like it maybe it's because I'm more knowledgeable about it as an industry, but I feel like the game industry has the most problems to fix because A, it's one of the newest industries out there, B, it's one of the biggest and most profitable industries out there, and this combination is not very good when it comes to like how the workers are treated and how the industry grows in like a healthy and functions in like a healthy way or and stuff like that. And every single game dev I know is someone who is incredibly passionate and talented and is trying tirelessly to work in the best of their ability to change the system from the inside and do whatever they can to like make things better, both for other game devs, both for people out both within and without the industry. And I think there are waves happening recently, and I have a video about this, which is about how these people need support more than ever, because
Yes.
they need our support. They need us behind them, because now is when these waves are happening. Now is when things are changing, and we need to make sure they change for the better. So
It's definitely, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, it's for the people, and you have to fight for the people. It's like I'd like to think I bring this into anything I've done in my life, and I just so happen to have wound up in the game industry. I say that like I didn't mean to, but obviously I did want to be. I just landed in it one day.
A lot of game devs talk like that. I've talked to a lot of game devs that were like, I have no idea how I ended up in the game industry. I just sort of did. I worked in a cafe before. Like I don't know what happened. I used to be a tailor. So, like,
I mean, I have a very like I don't know if it's necessarily I guess it is a unique journey from how I actually ended up into it compared to other people, because like, yeah, a lot of game devs are like, oh, I have no idea how I ended up here. But most of the time they had something like behind them that connected them, right? They had like a network connection, or they had some kind of education that related to it. And it's like, I had none of that, absolutely none of that. And like my studio did like an internship that was specifically like aimed at people who had no... They did like people who don't have like a game development degree, and people who have like no networking connections in the industry, and basically like they just rolled in from the street, like, you know, like whatever, and not literally rolled off the street, but like, you know, somebody who is not who you would expect.
You find them in a fortune cookie.
Yeah, I just stumbled onto the roof, but you know, and their whole thing was that they wanted to give an opportunity to someone who, you know, could have an impact on the industry in like a, I guess, like a work way. Like their intention was, it was for a QA internship. So they were like, we want to give this job to somebody who wants to be in the industry, who has had no opportunities to get in the industry, who's faced barriers. And I don't think that they intended, like, they get, like, I got it. And I don't think that I used to say a lot of the time, I was like, I'm so lucky. You know, like I'd be like, oh, I can't believe I got so lucky. But the truth of the matter is I did work hard for it. Like I did lots of stuff, I guess, in my own time. I did like game mods, and, you know, I went for a really rigorous interview process. I think there was something like 500 people who went for it. And then I ended up with the job, and they, you know, it was a great fit and everything, but I don't think they realized that they were also hiring somebody who was just basically about to like tear down the industry and be like, everything's fucking wrong. Like that was such a weird thing for me, because I didn't think it was going to happen either. Like everything that I've done,
you hired a time bomb.
Yeah, like I have a very much of a mindset of like, I haven't even gotten started yet, right? But I have definitely yes. But I definitely like to be critical of the industry, and I like to, because I very much think that you can love something and still be very critical about it.
Yes,
like that's just how, you know, that's how life should work, because you should constantly change and grow and be critical of things. But like, yeah, they kind of
that's the video essayist way of life.
Yeah, it is. But I think in a way it also speaks to like, that's what you get when you hire people who haven't had these opportunities, when you hire people who have had boundaries, because they are the kind of people who have experienced life in a different way, have experienced struggle, and also know injustice when they see it. And that was my big thing. It's like, I walked into this industry and was like, oh my God, I'm happy I'm here and it's great, but there's so much wrong with this place. Whereas there would be people who are, you know, they've done their game degrees and they're just getting on with their job, and they're like, oh yeah, well, that's just what it's like. And I'm like, but why are we not changing this? Why are we accepting this? And I think when people are a bit too close to it, and that's just what they've trained for and what they're used to, they're never going to make the change. And that doesn't make them bad people.
And
you know,
especially
nothing
if
like
you're
that,
benefiting from the system.
yeah, the people on the top, they're definitely not going to change. So we got to kick them out. I mean, like, when I started working in the industry, I was just happy to be here. And now I'm of this mindset where I'm like, I want to have my own studio. You know, I want to be able to be one of those people at the top. Like, I think it's amazing. What is it? Unseen, which is Akumi Nakamura. And I always thought it was amazing that, you know, you had like a femme creative director, like head of a studio, and there's a couple others, but there's not a lot. And you know, I'm non-binary, and I was just like, imagine if I had a fucking studio and I get to be like, I might not be the first, but it would be cool if I was. But even if I got to be, you know, a non-binary person in the industry who's like, here's my fucking studio and it's full of trans people and we make the best fucking games, because that, or I don't
If you ever do that, feel free to.
Well, I will, but like I don't care what anybody says, right? If you
gather a bunch of trans women, and they'll make the most unplayable video game.
They will make the best, because I will say this from my personal experience, that from every dev I've ever met from so far, and it will probably stay true, is that, you know, all the MBs and trans women and trans men are the best fucking people in the industry. And I do think, and also, and generally this also ties into, like, I won't super go off on this, but it ties off into the whole, like, as a disabled person in the industry, like, disabled people also work the hardest. And the thing is, right, I think, and I don't know if this is, like, I don't know if there's a science behind this, but from my personal experience, I think people who have been through a fucking lot to get where they are, they will have the best work ethic, and they also create stuff from the heart. They create stuff from their experiences. And I don't think the first part is right. Like, I don't think we should have to work harder just because we've been through a fucking lot, but it's just how it is. It's like, the disabled people, trans people in the industry, like people who don't have a lot of representation, basically anyone from a marginalized group, it's so fucking hard to find a place. So you work 10 times harder, like, to be like, look at the fucking work I do. And I don't necessarily think that's a good or a healthy thing for the industry, but it's also like, it's like an unfortunate truth. You know, it's just kind of like, it sucks that it has to be that way, and I cannot wait for the day, because I'm certain of it, because I'm one of those people who likes to be positive about change. You know, I want there to be a future where we don't have to fucking work harder just to be noticed and just to feel secure, because it's really fucking hard to feel secure in any industry when you're different, quite simply put. But at the same time, like I said, like, we also make stuff from experience. You know, a lot of people who go through fucking trauma make the best art. It's just as simple as that. And people who've been through good experiences, but I'd much rather play something by people who are fucking traumatized, like, personally, because I have that too, right? Like, I've been through it, and then I play something. It's why I like horror. It's really why I like horror, because I'll play something and it will be like the most demented shit, and I'm like, I fucking love this. This means so much. I want to go to bed listening to this, like, because it makes me feel safe that somebody else has created art from their pain.
Yeah, and then you'll make a video called, like, the comfort of being scared.
Yeah. The comfort of horror. I love my little video about the comfort of horrible things that go bump in the night. It's cool though. It's one of those things, right, where I made that video because I don't watch other YouTube videos, and it was really funny because I made it, and then a few other people would comment on it and be like, oh, this is just like this video, or have you checked out this video? And I just sat there and stared at it, and I was like, I'm not going to do that. No disrespect to anyone else, it just wasn't my MO when I made it, to sort of like deep dive into all the other stuff. I just wanted to say something. But then, like, so many other things popped up with people being like, oh my god, basically the general consensus that I was really shocked by was people just being like, holy shit, someone gets it. And I was like, sat there like, what the fuck? Like, other people feel like this?
Yeah.
There's
I think
there's a
like
chunk of a.
sorry, go on, Hannah.
No, it's okay.
I think uh, getting into sort of making videos from the perspective of somebody who doesn't watch other YouTube videos is both like a really interesting and really strong position to be in. Because I think there are, I think definitely like a pitfall that a lot of creators fall into, particularly when they get started, is that they've got like this other, they've got this channel that they watch and they're like, oh, I
And they
want
want
to
to
be
do
like them.
that.
I want to
Yeah.
make videos like that. And then that's where they maybe perhaps stumble in the beginning because they're not that creator. They're their own creator. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's definitely like a good strong position to be in,
Like, to
getting
clarify
started.
also, because I say I don't watch YouTube videos, that's technically a lie. I do watch YouTube videos. I just don't watch like horror video essays.
Right. Yeah.
My partner does sometimes, and sometimes I'll walk in on she tends to go to bed with them, so I'll hear it in the other room and I'll be like, oh, that sounds interesting. But I have a real weird thing for voices where like a lot of people's voices, they're either like 100% or zero, and there's a lot of people, and I mean no disrespect to anyone, like just sometimes if your voice isn't right, I'm like, I just can't watch your video. But like,
I
so
think
she'll
it's a
watch,
neurodivergence
yeah,
thing.
right, it's just
I
a
have a
pitch
similar thing.
thing. Whereas so she'll watch things and I'll be like, oh, this is nice, but I cannot get into it because I can't vibe on the voice. But like, I do watch other stuff. Like I watch I think the closest thing to what I do that I have watched is I watched Thor High Hills. And I think that was my first experience of ever sort of watching somebody who, I guess, spoke about games in a way that wasn't actively being critical of them, like in a traditional sense. It was just kind of like to invoke, what
Media
they
analysis.
meant.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a typical media analysis, because it was a bit more, had a tendency to talk about how it made them feel. And I thought that was very cool.
That's what I think of as traditional.
Yeah,
This is
well,
when I
that's
come-
but that's what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
for me, a lot of stuff that I had seen maybe when I was younger is very like typical technical analysis, critical analysis of like people being like, oh, the writing is like the lore is
Yeah.
incoherent or something. And I don't. This was my experience of like watching somebody who played janky games and was like, I love this, like what we were talking about earlier. And that was kind of like, I was like, oh, that's cool that you can do that. But then when I did my own videos, I didn't really want to do that sort of thing. I wanted to focus entirely on how it made you feel. I didn't want to be critical of anything. Like, that's something that I stay away from. I don't like to be like, this is good, this is bad. I just like to be like, this is a thing that happens, or, this makes me feel this way. And another thing that I did with my comfort of horror things, which was kind of funny because nobody like really commented on it, but one person sort of commented against it, which is really funny because like I get that there's this whole concept of like, don't read the comments, right? And I remember my girlfriend was like, don't do this, and I was like, I'm gonna do it, it's gonna be funny. And I read a comment.
I read all the comments.
Yeah, right. I read a comment, I think it was on the second one I did, which, because the first comfort of horror one I did just went off for some reason. I have no idea why. And then the second one, just it was a bit. But somebody said, I can't remember the exact term, but I think they were like, maybe you should change how you talk because you come across a bit hammy or something. And I could not stop laughing because it felt like it was the first time I was like, oh my God, someone missed the point. Because the point of those videos where I talk, it's meant to sound like ASMR, because the videos are meant to like be about the ASMR of horror games. So I was like, if I really enunciate my words and sort of soften my voice and really say things like delicate and precious, it's like it was meant to evoke those sensations as you watched it, to sort of give you this sort of, I guess, like this feeling of what I'm trying to say. I can't even think of words right now, but I mean, it's supposed to invoke emotion where I'm describing emotion, and I find that a lot easier if it's like an ASMR. But this person was like, because I did that video before on RMJ, the Mystery Hospital, and I was hype. I was so hyped because that was the craziest game. I loved it. I had so much fun with that, and it was like an experience of like I just made that video purely because I played something and I was sat there stunned. And I was like, holy shit, I have to tell people about this. I don't care if there's videos on it. I have to tell people. And I was so hyped and I was excited. And it was also my first video. So I didn't really know how to pace myself. So for somebody to be like, oh, you should do it more like your first video. And I'm like, that's me talking about the most batshit game I've ever experienced versus me trying to discuss like the emotional impact of horror. That really felt like someone missing the point. And I kind of love that for them. I hope they're doing well.
It's funny when I think there's a funny thing where people don't get that. And I mean this both people who watch and also people who make sometimes don't get that like video essays are performance.
Yeah,
you are performing.
Yeah.
And how you perform it and the way that you perform it's going to affect what it comes across as and what it says. And like, well, I'm mostly happy with the Demona video. I definitely am not
You slipped
super
a
happy
bit
with
into
some
your
of
video
my...
essays voice, into your video essay voice a bit there.
Probably, yeah. I tend to get more feminine with the voice, I guess, in a specific way.
That just proves what you're saying, right? About the performance.
Yeah.
It's like we all have a specific voice or voices we have to switch to. It's like I don't sound like this during my videos all the time. Like I act up. You know, I have to act to a part.
You know, like it's a bit of. I'm a bit of a unique case because I talk. I record my videos exactly how I talk, and
Okay.
I write.
You at baseline are a performance,
and I write my scripts exactly how I talk too. But yeah, and I do talk weird, so it works. So
you talk. This is a compliment because I love it. But you do talk like a cartoon character, just naturally.
It works, yeah.
And it works for you in an amazing way. But I do think it is funny because I like as we've gotten to know each other and things. It's funny, like even just when we first started interacting, like in the Discords and things, I was like, oh. That's not a performance. That's just dark.
That's just who
real.
you are.
That's just how you are, and it's really funny. But I think an interesting thing, and sometimes a frustrating thing with parasociality and things, as I've gotten to know, like most of my favorite video essayists are people I'm friends with now, even though I'd seen their stuff long before I ever met them. Which it's always funny and pleasant and nice experience meeting other artists who are like, I really like your art, and you're like, I like your art.
Yeah.
but just like people, I don't think it's always even full awareness on the part of the people performing too. But like, there is differences for sure between who we are on camera and who we are off camera or off voiceover, whatever you want to call it. And that people don't sometimes, I think, when watching, like engage with the fact that these are art pieces that are saying something. And I think like that comment is a perfect example of that type of thing where it's like, instead of asking why, they just went, I don't like this element. And
yeah,
it's like,
you should just change
why is
the
it
thing.
there? Like,
Yeah.
why, like, and I think there's just this sort of fundamental incuriosity about like what the art is trying to emotionally invoke and say that a lot of people have. And I think part of that comes from the culture of analysis that's like so heavily baked into the idea of like good and bad, like we've been discussing earlier, instead of like, what is this saying to me? What do I get from it? What does it emotionally evoke in me? And a lot of my work is really, really, really focused on what is it emotionally evoking in me? How is it affecting me? And what does that mean? And what does that say? And why do I feel that way about it? And then the process of digging into that like illuminates more about the art, but also about myself and about the world. And I think you're talking about like art that comes from a traumatized place. And this is something that I've always, because I hate the idea of like the artist must suffer for the art to exist type of thing. But I do think that art that comes from a place of having lived a life, whether good, bad, whatever, I think Tim Rogers is a really good example of someone that generally doesn't speak from a lot of trauma, but does speak from like a lived life in a really interesting way. Like the Action Button Reviews videos, which are brilliant writing just at baseline. But I think when you talk about like the comfort of horror, I think for myself, and I've talked about this in videos, and I have a section of a script actually on Signalis where I talk about why pathologic is so endearing to trans people specifically, and like what is it doing? Why? Because I'm like that's weird. That's interesting. That trans
that's a
people find
response. That's a response video to me, basically.
You said it after I had written. No, I will read a tiny bit of it, just because of that, just because the Darkfry quote is in there. Which is the bit that I had written was, I bought Signalis without a second thought when my friend Ruby, who you might know as the face of Codex Entry, told me that she was doing a video on it and it was really good. The reason that's all I needed was Pathologic. Ruby and her partner Clark are the reason I finally tried Pathologic, partially due to their series Pathologic for those who will never play it, which is really good, by the way. Watch it. And partially from a conversation about how the game's not as bad as people make it out to be. A lot of video essay hours have been dedicated to discussing how difficult and unpleasant Pathologic is. Daniil's fun step vacation. As someone who deals with enough unpleasant experiences in my day-to-day, I was unsure I wanted to engage in it in my downtime, especially because certain types of games set off my anxiety. One of my favorite horror games, Dead Space, has caused me to have a panic attack before. But I booted up the game and discovered that for some fucked up reason, Pathologic is unironically Aeronoc's fun step vacation. I like the combat system for some reason. I love this walking. I'm obsessed with my stinkiest, worst son, Daniil. He knows what he did. These characters, these systems feel like a strange home. It's pleasant and enjoyable for me. That's weird, right? Is it just me or is that not just weird? Like, do you want to know a game that does stress me out? Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing induces more stress in me than Pathologic.
Oh, I get that.
And I'm just gonna place that video where it's like, where does the circle go? That's right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And a while later, a while after thinking about this, my friend Darkfry said that Pathologic is a game enjoyed by trans people and H-Bomber Guy. I'd add Playhead, North, and Ragnaroks to that list. But why the fuck is that? Why do a massive number of trans people I know like this game? And then I'm gonna have like Ruby, Clark, and Haley do a bit where they say their stuff. But anyway, I think that perhaps, and hear me out on this, trans people are far more experienced with discomfort than cis people. It is not an abnormal emotional state. It is perhaps just a baseline element of our day-to-day. Thanks, cis people. So Pathologic is, for us, more of a comedy than
Thanks,
anything
Obama.
else. I can't count how many times I've laughed at Daniil's terrible insert a funny line from Daniil. Why would you say that, you stinky man? Like, yeah, sure, everything is super difficult and you're not the hero and things go bad, but compared to real life, it still feels pretty empowering, I'm not gonna lie. It's a more relatable work than I could expect it to be, and as someone who did pandemic spread research during a pandemic and was privy to my province's bungling of the situation, slow horrified camera zoom, let's say it was just a little extra relatable. I'd say a central feeling of Pathologic is clawing your way towards any good thing you can have while feeling like everything is stacked against you surviving and the powers that be are indifferent to your plight. Totally not relatable to the trans experience.
That's very succinct.
And then
Like
I have one other paragraph that I think is relevant.
It's very similar to the points you made in your videos, Lee. And I am afraid I'm going to have to pull the plug here.
Okay.
So one thing that really fascinates me about both your videos and you yourself, Lee, is how like when you see the things you like, your videos and the things you make them about and how you do it, like your passion and your your love for the subject matter is clear, right?
Yeah.
And I think that it's amazing how that combines with like you being in the industry and being a very active and vocal advocate for accessibility and positive change, and I think that's amazing. Mm-hmm. And I want you to continue being loud. I want you to continue being the amazing advocate you are. I want you to continue doing cool things, and I want you to continue being awesome. All right.
I will.
So
I will.
yeah, with that, we have
Thank
reached
you.
the end of this episode of Video Gems. You have all been amazing. Lee, any words you want to share?
Well, I was half expecting. It's really funny because my girlfriend said, she was like, they're gonna ask you when your next video is, and I was like, get to fuck, they won't, and you didn't. So that was nice. So I'm not telling anybody when my next video is. But
Because we
yeah,
don't
this
like
was
the
great.
question either.
Yeah, right.
Video essays
No
is
one
the
likes the question. The answer is when I can be fucking bothered. I do have that thing where I'm like,
The
I have
only
four-
person, the only person I will ask this question to is H Bomber Guy.
Yeah, I mean, I've got 4 scripts that are all half done.
Hell
And
yeah.
it's because
man.
like
Yo,
it's like each
same.
of them right and each of them I don't have that thing. I know some people who do video essays, they have the thing where they lose interest, and I don't have that. I just jump onto something else and I'm still really interested. Like, not a day goes by that I don't start thinking, please pick up this script about fucking dinosaur horror games. Like, it's all there. There's so many now. Just go fucking do it. But then I start thinking, oh yeah, but you know, you haven't done your Scorn art video, which is going to be fucking insane when I do it. But then I start thinking, God, then we want to start talking about pregnancy and horror games, don't we? And I'm just like, I just look at myself and I just go like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, you know, I'll get some eventually. Something will be up.
Yeah,
That's
eventually.
normal.
It's,
I think that's
it's
normal as an
happening
artist.
to you. It's
Yeah.
happening to you.
It gets everybody eventually.
There's there's always a point where I have to be like, I need to get something done.
Yeah.
So this script, I'm just going to force myself to finish. And there's this like weird little segment where I kind of have to force myself to keep focused on that and not working on the billion other things that I'm interested in doing. And then I like break through and then I can finish and I'm just
See, I'm
hyper-focused on that
really
one
lucky
thing.
in that I don't have that, because it's not, when I make videos, I have a really weird mindset of, I basically just do it for myself. Like, I genuinely don't care if people watch them. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I love it when people comment, talk to me about it. I love this. This has been incredible. But I don't upload with the intent of being like, oh my God, I hope this moves someone, or I hope this does something. I will upload, I will post about it on Twitter, and then I'll be like, I might send it to a couple of friends and be like, hey, I did a thing. And then, like, to hell with it, right? Like, it's out there. Who cares? It's done. So yeah, things. And so I'm blessed. I am blessed in that respect, because I don't stress. I don't lose sleep. And also, you know, I work full time. So if I focused on this, like videos, on top of that, and on top of my accessibility specialism, and on top of my writing, do you know what I mean? Like, the list is, I do so much
There's
stuff.
so much. No,
There's
I
so
get it.
much.
Multi-talented
Everybody
and
does so much.
multifaceted, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's the whole thing. So yeah, I pulled the plug. The episode is on life support now. It's beeping.
Okay.
We have to put it out of its misery.
Okay, look, I'm gonna say we let Grandma go. You know, she had a good life, and this was an awful lot of fun. I really enjoyed this, so thank you.
Hell
3,
yeah.
2, 1, plug is pulled. Beep.